It's getting dark, so in a couple hours, we're going to come back here. We're going to spend the night in and around here. If people cross the border, we're going to talk to them.
I'm going to do the same. The only thing I don't like is the ending. So when you say that...
So I work with a producer named Leonardo Pelea, and in February of 2017, we had conversations about how wouldn't it be interesting, wouldn't it be powerful to go to the Manitoba-North Dakota border and try to see some of the people crossing into Canada, jumping the border. Emerson, Manitoba, a town of about 700 right on the border. For a growing number of desperate migrants, this little town is a kind of promised land. We thought, well, we'll book 2 nights at the little motel in Emerson. That's what we did. We went in and we spent the day actually talking to the motel owner, talking to the local newspaper publisher, getting to know the town and getting the sort of vibe of the town and how people stood on this issue of people crossing the border as it was beginning to bubble up across the country and people were beginning to talk about it. In the last 2 weeks alone, more than 50 people have risked their lives and walked across these frozen fields. You hear a lot about this being the longest undefended border in the world. This is what that looks like. When you're there in Emerson, between Emerson and North Dakota, it really hits home. It's fields, it's snow, it's ice, and more fields. It's just space, and that's the border. So we'd walk it. We went to the motel again that night, and the gentleman there said, there's no one going to cross tonight. It was minus 27. The wind was howling, howling, howling. So we turned in early that night and tried again the next day. The next day we went out in the early evening, and the idea was to spend the whole night out. We wanted to be outside as much as possible and to be on the border in case we saw someone. But it was cold, so I think it was about 4 in the morning, we were tired, and I think we were worried about falling asleep. And we didn't want to fall asleep, so we thought, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll get in the car and we'll go for a drive. I was driving, Leo's in the passenger seat, and he points out the window and goes, hey, what's that? And he told me that he saw something on the side of the road that looked like, he thought it was a suitcase. I didn't see it at first. We stopped the car, we look out, and there was a man. The suitcase turned into a man. He stood up. And I think he'd been sleeping in a snowbank on the side of the road. And so we got out of the car and approached him. When I get closer, I realize it's a man lying in a snowbank. How's it going? What's your name?
Mohammed.
Mohammed? Nice to meet you. Did you just cross?
Yeah.
My heart was racing. I thought, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really know who he was or what he was, and then I looked more closely and he was covered in snow. Mohammed's been out here wandering in the cold for 21 hours. Okay. Why did you want to come to Canada?
I have a problem.
What's the problem?
America's problem now. The people are good.
We could really only see his eyes, but I think that, and then looking into his eyes, I could sense that he was afraid, that he didn't know who we were and what we might do, and I guess it was a shock.
We do have officers on the way, so just let them know that, okay?
Should we put Mohammed in the car to warm up?
Yeah, if you can.
Come with me. I had never seen someone put their whole life on the line like that before. I mean, intellectually, I thought, before we went on the story, I thought, well, obviously people are risking their lives, but I saw it, and the cold and the struggle that he'd been through, I mean, I can't imagine.
I want to know where Muhammad's journey started and what he's running from. But this isn't the time.
Maybe if we hadn't come by, no one else would have come by. I hope that if people saw the image and if people saw the story, they can feel a little bit what that's like for the people who are crossing. Doesn't mean you agree with it or you disagree with it, but to feel it.